people? It is Dave and Duncan
Well,
back.
no. What is up, people? It is Dave of Anguish and Duncan. Let's get this right. Mix things up for this one. Trust me, if the guys are checking out this review, they'll appreciate the fact that we did that.
I didn't want to just throw my nickname in there that the guys gave me. I did, it's kind of thrown in people's faces. I don't want to.
The thing is, it's not jealousy. It's not. You can never claim it as a nickname until you're officially called it by someone who doesn't really know you.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
That's when it becomes a nickname, and they don't really know you, and they shouted it down a busy Glasgow street. So I think we can officially call you Dave of Anguish.
True that. Okay, for this review, Dave of Anguish and Duncan. Back to review a new album, a metal epidemic, and for this review, we are checking out the new album from European Deathcore troupe Distant. The band's new album, Heritage, will be released on February 10th via Century Media Records. Okay.
Dave, the album is so heavy that when you sent me the email and it came in on my phone, I fell into a canal and drowned. I stood on the scales and I put on 3 stone.
Let's get to this, Duncan. We've spoken about this band many a time. We've reviewed the EPs. We reviewed the last album.
I mean, it helps when they release something every 6 months. I think that's how you ensure that people talk about you a lot. Is when you don't really give them a chance not to talk about you.
True. Let's talk about Heritage. The album continues a thematic, sci-fi leaning lyrical cycle which the band already transposed from oral intensity to the published page, with vocalist Alan and bassist Elmer's first novel, The Rise of Tyrannotopia. The album is 12 tracks, 47 minutes in length, and was recorded by the band themselves, then produced by Howard Fang from Within Destruction, Nuri, who is the distant guitarist, and Simone Pietroforte. The album was then mixed and mastered by Simone as well. Been kind of desperate to hear this, not going to lie.
We had that single. So we did the single. How long ago was that? It must have been a while ago. And at the end of it, I was like to you, Dave, I was like, you know what? I'm excited.
Yes,
I liked it. I really, really, really liked it. I thought I've had not issues with, like, they've scored high with me pretty much every time. My concern has always been, how will this bear out over a full album? On EP, it works divine for me, because I just get to that point where I feel like I'm starting to like sink into my chair from the heaviness, and then it stops and I'm like, pull myself back up, we're all right. And the previous album was long. I know you loved it, but it was long, Dave.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't really worried about how it would work on the album. I was kind of more thinking, like, I wasn't sure how it was going to work live. I saw them last year with Decapitated and Despised Icon in Glasgow, and it was kind of like the final piece of the puzzle for me. It was the only thing I wasn't sure about. Just seeing how all this is going to come together in a live environment. And it was unreal. It was like an experience. That the fact they can pull this sound off live with all the layers is just, it was very impressive. Got a little bit of a taste of some of the new material on tour, and that definitely got me excited to hear Heritage in full. I think, where to start? I think
every Distant review starts off with a can I host it?
To sum this up in a word, like this, the word would be relentless. Like this album does not give a tiny rat's ass about how much you can handle in one album. There are 0 fucks given for your eardrums on this album. After that nice and tranquil 2-minute intro, this album will just pound you from start to finish. If you were in prison, this album would make you its bitch. It has zero
what you're
respect.
saying is don't drop the soap around this album.
Oh, zero respect for your anus, Duncan. Absolutely none.
Hey, listen, if there's any death metal bands, Sanguisugabog, if you're listening to this review here, 0 respect for your anus, 3rd album. Credit Dave, right?
The 2-minute intro you get, that is literally all the foreplay you're getting, but before it tears you a second asshole and penetrates that as well.
Oh dear.
This is like, as soon as that kicked in, it is the second track kicks in, it is like mechanically tight, like
Yes.
unlike your saggy anus is, right? It is monstrously heavy, monstrously heavy is kind of an understatement, to be honest. Like I'm saying, oh, it's monstrously heavy. Doesn't even do it justice, to be honest. It is difficult to put into words how heavy this album is. This is an album that like will make, for me, and it made me feel exhausted after it finished. I was just like, oh my god, I am fucking knackered. And that's maybe because I'm old as fuck, you know what I mean? But other young whippersnappers might be like,
goddamn whippersnappers.
Again, this body that you're seeing is classed as vintage, ladies and gents. This is like a fine wine, some would say, Duncan.
Is this review of your body or is it of this album? Is this like a new form of Tinder?
Okay, I'm going to concentrate on the album. Right here, what I loved about this is, even though this is bowel looseningly, is that a word?
It is now.
Could be. It is bowel loosening.
This will loosen your bowel.
Loosen your bowels. It's very well constructed. Like this is like the tracks. All the tracks apart from one track are between about 3 and 5 minutes. So they don't overstay their welcome. They constantly change rhythm and tempo. There's no real feeling of like repetition. There's also, the cloak of darkness that just sits in the background and makes you feel just uneasy the whole time, and that's something they've been doing, for a while. So if you know Distant, you'll expect that like layer of ominous anxiety sitting in the background. And once again, they use that to full effect on Heritage. It just lingers there, making each track feel more menacing as it goes on.
Also, the Cloak of Darkness is my dogging nickname. So there you go. Keep going.
Nice. I like it. Musically, this is probably the most technically savage Distant I've ever sounded for me. It is meticulously woven together. Nothing sounds out of place. It's delivered with like pinpoint accuracy. The riffs are just utterly pulverizing. And unlike last year, I had an issue with the Lorna Shore album where I felt like they just kind of like they blotted their full load on the start of the album, and then everything else just kind of felt like a little bit underwhelming. This album didn't feel like that. This album continues to grow heavier and more dissonant as it goes on.
It's also half an hour shorter, which helps.
That's true.
Like Lorna Shore's album is too long.
Yes, I agree with that. They've also created what I'd like to call the Inception breakdown, Duncan.
Oh, the Inception breakdown.
Where they place a breakdown within a breakdown within a breakdown.
Yes, they do. And by that point, Dave, you no longer know where you are.
Not a clue, Duncan.
By the third breakdown, you're kind of, it's like Stockholm Syndrome. You're just agreeing with the band. Like, please, sir, can I have another breakdown? Oh, I can. Awesome.
Yes. It's just like when you feel like, okay, right, they've probably hit their peak. It can't possibly go any heavier. They somehow manage to extract your soul from your body and just annihilate your senses with something so heavy. It shouldn't have been possible to record, Duncan. It was that heavy. The only time this album really lets up is maybe when they venture into something a little bit more kind of lead heavy, maybe like a solo or a bit of lead work. And it kind of gives you that moment of like respite before they unleash on you again. And the solos are fantastic. Both Nuri and Vlad are phenomenal guitarists. The solos are very tasteful. Sometimes only like 10, 15 seconds, but I think even that, it just gives the tracks a little lift, a little change in tone, gives you a little breather, and then you're on to the next part. For me though, the MVP of this album is Alan, the vocalist. his
set pipes,
his
set
vocals,
all pipes.
like some of the most ruthless I've ever heard. The tone and the range is unbelievable. His voice on like tracks like Exofilth, or the title track are just insane. Like I used to think Alex Terrible from Slaughter to Prevail had probably one of the most demonic deathcore vocals like going. I honestly think Alan has surpassed his level of heaviness on this release. And it's not just the gutturals either. His screams are awesome. The tonal work he does on Orphan of Blight is just fantastic. Almost has that kind of like Travis Ryan kind of cattle decap that style of screaming with the melody that's infused through it. I think he sounds the best he's ever sounded, in my opinion. And he can pull it off live, which is the most important thing. When I saw them live, his vocals were insanely good. There's nothing worse than a vocalist that sounds incredible on CD and then you hear it live and you're like,
yeah,
that's been a lot of studio work. He can do both, like, and he makes it look easy, absolutely easy. Obviously, talking about vocals, we need to talk about Argent Justice,
which is the longest track.
Yes,
by quite some bit, and for I would say probably good reason.
Yes, 16 guest vocalists is the reason. Noggin. This could be the collaboration of all collaborations.
Could you imagine them doing this live at a festival and they just have a choir of 17 brutal deathcore vocalists in the background?
Wow,
just nuts, absolutely nuts.
Like, and you're talking about some huge names in the genre. You know what I mean? Like
if Band-Aid was a death metal track,
exactly.
This would be it.
This would be it. Like, you've got Eddie from Suicide Silence, you've got Frankie from Immure, you've got Mark from Paleface, you've got the guys from Crown Magnetar, Cabal, Angel Maker, Body Snatcher, Worm Shepherd, and more. It's just insane. Also, as you said, the longest track, over 7 minutes long. It has more of a kind of symphonic vibe in terms of the kind of backing and the synths. And it really, again, never really lets up at all. It ends with one of the heaviest, most Inception breakdowns you'll hear all year. It is pure filth, that track. And I think, even though I was like, at first there was like 16 guest vocalists, really? I mean, is that really needed? But actually, it kind of adds to the weight and the magnitude of the track. It just sounds incredible. They follow that up as well with the Gnostic Uprising, which after Argent Justice, I was like, how did they follow that? But the track that follows it is still colossally heavy. And what they do very cleverly is the riffs on that track are a bit more spacious. And there's also a more kind of like, almost kind of like a movie soundtrack feel in the background.
There's and I was going to save this for when I talk about it, but like the Gnostic Uprising, some of the guitar work is very reminiscent of Korn. Oh, like some of those weird sounds that they did that everyone started copying. You know, just like, all these kind of weird, like effects driven, like just purely to add something different than the chug.
Yeah.
Is all over that. And when I was listening, I was like, did he just fucking pull off a Korn on this album? Fucking pulled off a Korn on this album.
Yeah. The other thing the track's got is bass booms galore, Duncan.
Well, it's back, Dave. Like, you know what? Some people got tired of them first time round.
They did.
Never me. I never got tired of them.
I love the bass drops.
I love the bass drops, right? What I love about it now is, like, see, like, it took whichever band it was that brought it back. As soon as they brought it back, everyone was like, it's time. And Distant went on that. Distant are the least, of all the bands, Distant are the least needing of a bass boom because they're that heavy. But I respect, like, listen, game respects game.
Yeah.
I respect the fact that they're like that. Bass booms,
like, and it's just like they do it live as well. I saw them live. They were dropping them in as well. So prepare yourself if you're going to see them live. And then that track finishes with a riff that is so low, like the guitars drop to ridiculous. I don't know if they've tuned them that way or they've just kind of just loosened the string. It's just ridiculously heavy. It is insanely low. Yeah, just, and like, even once I heard that, I was like, how did they follow that up? But the album continued to just kick my ass to the very end. The only kind of small criticism that I've got, as much as I love like the the sinister, the backing to these tracks, and I think it really adds to like the overall package. Even live, I thought it was awesome. The only thing I felt was on a couple of occasions, so I felt like some of the riffs might have been more kind of prominent had they not had that layer in the background. I think it would have let maybe some of the riffs shine through a little bit more on their own and not have to compete with what's going on in the background, that kind of darkness they had in the background. I think some of the riffs could have just shone through a little bit more. Very small. Other than that, I think this is brilliant. I think the length is spot on. It doesn't feel too long at all. It's a good length for an album of this style. And the production is very indicative of the genre. It's very well produced. But I think without that sheen and the that kind of the digital altering, I think it wouldn't be nearly as impactful, and it is colossally heavy. Like without that production, it would not be as heavy as this, without a doubt. So I really enjoyed it. It didn't disappoint in the slightest. Great job. What about yourself? What do you think?
Decent. Now that you've had the soapy hand job from Dave, which you knew you were getting because you gave my t-shirt, right? You knew you were getting that.
And a condom.
Let's get down to brass tacks. There's one guy on this fucking recording here that you have to fully win over. And it's the guy that said, never an album. Just EPs. Just EPs, never an album. And then Dave was like, they're releasing an album again. And I was like that. No. EPs. And then it arrived. I put it on the old computer and it was 47 minutes long, and I was like, no, just EPs. And then I sat and listened to it, and I want to publicly apologise on this recording and say albums. Give me albums. This is really fucking good. Like the previous album to me, because it was an amalgamation of different EPs, and we noted at the time a change in production style as well, which was kind of seamed together that just made it not gel as well to me. This is a full package. This all has the one sound all the way right through it. And when I say one sound, I mean the one production all the way right through it.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think I fully got Distant, right? Because I feel it's very, very easy. I'm not saying you did this, so no shots fired here. But I think it's very, very easy to talk about how heavy Distant is and not talk about how clever Distant is. As a band, they are very, very, very smart. There's so much going on. It sometimes can take a few listens to get into exactly what they're doing on the guitars, and it's all the little accents, and it's all the little tweaks, and it's all the little glitchy things that they do while they're playing that break up the monotonous tones of kind of deathcore, and adds into it. Now, like you mentioned before, without the stylings of this production, it wouldn't work. This is kind of what this production's designed for. Like, doesn't openly say that they are a sci-fi influenced band.
Yeah.
This has the opening track, Acid Rain, it's kind of sci-fi, electronic, and those tones go all the way through it. So a meticulous machine-like production on it totally fits the brief.
Yeah.
In fact, if they didn't have that, it wouldn't be as good. And it's kind of why I didn't like that last album, because the second EP didn't really have that. It had a kind of darker, kind of danker, maybe slightly less refined, polished it. The songs were there, but the production just didn't marry up.
Yeah.
It's here and it's here in spades. Relentlessly heavy is a good way to describe it, but once again, it's full of personality. I found that on every subsequent listen, what I found was there was another guitar bit, there was a production boom, there was a breakdown that I appreciated more when I took it into context of what they were doing throughout the whole album. And this is one, definitely at the end of it, you need to sit down and you need to just take a bit of time out.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, make yourself a cup of chamomile tea.
Take a holiday.
Book a holiday.
Take a week off.
Get away for a wee while. Get a vacation from your vacation, Dave, and then come back and listen to it again, because it is that heavy. But I just found there was so many points that I could just hook into and just really pull myself in on the listens. It is difficult to describe how heavy Distant are, because I feel like the term heavy is subjective, because like everyone has that band where they're like, oh, this is the heavy. We've talked about it before. We've seen certain bands and we're like, this is the heaviest heavy music is ever going to sound. Distant really are in their own little camp. It's weird to describe. It is the wall of sound that you get from them that I think is what is like they really don't. And there's part of that is that kind of ominous tones in the background, which is just their sound. I know it's become part of the scene, but I think Distant use it smarter than everyone else, and that it's in the mix enough that it never overpowers anything in there, but at the same time you're always aware it's there. It's unsettling, but it's kind of cool how they use it. But it's the sheer volume of what you get, even in those breakdowns where there's space. It still feels like heavy in the space. Like there's a sense of dread for when the next riff's going to hit or the next boom's going to land. And that makes an exhilarating listen, the same way that people go on roller coasters or go and see horror movies. Like, we all want to be scared. And the reason we want to be scared is the feeling that you get after it is just pure adrenaline. And that's what this album is. It's an adrenaline rush from start to end. Like I mentioned, the guitar work all the way through it is really, really clever, and they'll give you they've got grooves for days, man. They really, really do. Just like absolute brilliant masters of the breakdown. But all the quirk and all the smartness in some of the lead work that you mentioned before, clearly they could have minute solos. They've got it in the tank, but it's adding an element to accentuate a part of a song as opposed to being the prominent part of a song. Just really, really, really smart musicianship and just really clever songwriting. The production is so heavy. It's like heavy to the extent that it's really difficult to even quantify. And then, like you mentioned before, they add bass booms in there. Why not, man? Like, there's a certain part, like, it's like when you're already really drunk, like really, really drunk, and you know you're going to have the worst hangover in the morning, you might as well have another drink. You know, what damage is it actually going to do? You're fucked anyway, so you might as well go for it. It's kind of the sound that they bring here. Vocally, this is, like, jaw-droppingly good. There's... Some people can be reductive about deathcore vocals, death metal vocals, or whatever, and I can kind of see it to an extent. Some people sit within an attainable, non-stretchy tone that they can do, that they've mastered, and they can just pull it out their ass whenever they want. There's layers to this, and those layers are really, really, really clever. And they add tone, shape, and context. I think it's very, very smartly done. And the fact, if Dave says he can do it live, that's all I need to hear. He can do it fucking live. Like yourself, there is a glaring song on this one, which is about double the length of everything else, but smartly comes right in the middle of the album. And it's the one that does add the symphonics, and it adds like a spectacle of theatre about it. And it's really, and then they don't revisit it again, and that's genuinely very, very, very smart, because you get an album that builds up to this massive crescendo, and rather than lose anything away, they just code switch into, well, this is what we do really, really well, and they drag you right to the end of the album. So it's really, really, really well placed as well. And it works. Like yourself, I love, like, I've lost track of how many bands do the guest vocal thing, and then they come on and some do it really well. They get a guest vocalist in that has a completely different range, and as a result it works. Then you get a lot of them, especially in this genre, where it's featuring guest vocalist blah from fucking blah, and then you listen to it and it's like, well, he just sounds kind of the same as you. What's the point? This one here, it's all the layers, it's all the different tones, and it comes in, and it's actually a work of art when you listen to it. It's so smartly crafted that it really, really, really works. And then the album just switches gear in the back half and just continues. Like when they were doing, and when I say corn, I don't mean that's not what I mean. I mean like all the stuff that Monkey used to do with the weird sounds and like effects pedals and all the rest. They dot that through the Gnostic Uprising in a smart way, and it's used in other parts, but it's really more prevalent on that one before you get the total stank at the end. I think this is a fucking incredible album. I think it's really, really, really well put together. It shouldn't work nearly as well as it does. It shouldn't invite you to re-listen as much as you will, but as deathcore albums go, this is probably one of the heaviest I've heard, and actually one of the smartest. Like, I keep coming back to that word smart. The songwriting on this, the use of the instrumentations and the accents and all the stuff they do, part of it's done in terms of technical wizardry behind the desk, but you don't get that without the band fucking around with sounds as well. It's just really, really smart. It's a band that clearly have a great creative overview and foresight for what they want to do, and the ability to back up. And then the very, very last thing I'll say is the artwork to this is fucking bitchin'. Like, absolutely bitchin'. It's like a fucking like a cyborg fucking Satan eater. Don't even know what Satan eater is. That'll be Sango Sugabog's third album's second track. No, I like it. Genuinely, I fucking love it. I think it's so fucking cool. And like, looking at it, you get all those sci-fi elements, but you get all that dark kind of nasty, kind of brutal fucking deathcore stuff in there, and then you switch it on and it delivers all that. It is an incredible album, and I will give them their credit. They've delivered an album that I didn't think they'd be able to do for me, which gave me all the things I get from listening to them in EP form.
Nice. Okay, so scores. What do we think? Where would Heritage score for you on this new album from Distant? I was obviously very excited to hear this, and it didn't disappoint. I thought it was a really good album. I think it's a step up from the EPs that they've done. The last one, the last album, we felt obviously was a bit long. Just, they combined a lot of stuff. I think this is a perfect length. It's fully digestible. Yes, it is exhausting. You will be absolutely knackered by the end of it. I felt the only little criticism I had was the back end stuff. Maybe could be pulled back a little bit in some areas, just to let the riff shine through a little bit, but it was very small. So for that, I'm going to go 4.5 out of 5 on this one. Duncan, what are you thinking?
We are joining a lot tonight. This is a 4.5. I think the first EP they released got a 4.5 from me, and I think their second EP got 4. Right. Memory serves, and I would put this, like I said before, I think 4.5, and me saying always keep this in the EP format because this works. The fact that I've stretched this out to an album and it still works for me is credit to the band. I also don't think, and I call this a lot, but I genuinely mean it, I still don't think we've heard the best from Distant. I think you get those flourishes on every album or every release they do where you hear another aspect that they clearly can do, and I think they have. I think they've got a 5-star album in them, and this is tantalizingly close. I think this is a fucking great album that they should be immensely proud of, and I think it will bring over droves of people that have never heard them before.
Agreed. Distant and Heritage out on February 10th on Century Media Records. Links below to the band and the pre-order. Let us know what you think. Have a listen. Stick some comments in below. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.